Tucked away in the depths of Kargil is a place called Suru. And every year for 2 weeks, hundreds of lunatics from all over the globe gather here to do a bunch of weirdo things. Now you may ask me why they do this in the middle of nowhere. And the answer is simple. Suru has some brilliant rocks. My name is Kapish, and I'm here to talk about the 7th edition of Surufest. At least in terms of pacing, Surufest is all over the place, so it only makes sense that I carry on with the tradition. Cue the montage.
Like, there's one spot called Paradise, but actually it's all over Paradise. This is, that's it. And Paradise, beautiful people, beautiful mountains, good rocks to climb.
Well, Surufest to me is an amalgamation of people from various walks of life who come together to gather in this place that has a bouldering field that's beautiful, one of the best in India, and kind of just bring all their talents together, pull it in and take it forward in whatever way they can and build a community year on year.
क्या बोलूँ कि मतलब इट्स अ वेरी ब्यूटीफुल एक्सपीरियंस. एक पहाड़ों में, एक लेह लद्दाख में इतने ब्यूटीफुल सीनरी में क्लाइंब करना एंड टू डू अदर एडवेंचरस एक्टिविटीज़ जैसे हाई लाइन करनी या यू डू कयाकिंग इन द इंडस, एक अलग ही एक्सपीरियंस है वो. सो इट्स एवरीथिंग. लाइक मेरे जैसे एडवेंचरस बंदे के लिए तो बहुत सुरूफेस्ट मतलब इट्स द प्लेस.
I think it's a lot of different things for different people, and it has different meanings. And for me, it's a place both to rest, but also to be active.
So for me, it's like coming out to the outdoors and relaxing myself out of this stress kind of response that I live with in the city or usually wherever I am. So I've just come back to remember myself here.
A meeting point of like-minded people, of like-minded personalities. It's not necessarily, limited to athletes. It's for anybody with a similar mindset to ours.
Surufest is a coming together of a lot of like-minded individuals, a lot of people with the similar interests, and more than anything, I mean, sure, there's a lot of outdoor activities, but more than anything, it's a coming together and creating a sort of a community energy, where we're sort of all the same people. We're all, the same men.
Surufest is a place that you can be free for be yourself, and I think I've never been in a place with such a cool people like together in just one place. And yeah, for me, Surufest is all about people and nature, sports. That's all I love.
The main intention was to bring people like into the outdoors, and this seemed like the right place because like it's not too hot, not too cold, and it's like, for people just getting into the scene, it seemed quite apt. And also, like, we've been climbing here for many years, like even before we started the festival. So it was like an effort to bring more people here and create an area like within a popular climbing area within Ladakh, basically.
A climbing place where you enjoy and have fun.
I feel like you have every kind of tempo that you want. Like if you want to be super social, just have to go out and be with other people because there's a lot of people here. And if you want to just chill and be in nature, then there's so much space.
Well, we wanted people to visit this area because the local community has nothing. I mean, usually all tourists are passing by here, you know, no one stops here. And to give some use of all this rock that they have here, you know, a lot of climbers will come. This place, you have a bit of everything here. There's kayaking, slacklining, highlining, bouldering. There's a lot of great big mountains close by, so there's something for everyone.
It's a movement. It's a movement to move, you know, in every form possible. It's the celebration of the sport, of the stoke, of being outdoors, of community, of supporting everyone, learning and getting strong, you know, getting pumped and supporting good endorphins in the body. You know, everyone's high on endorphins, all natural. You know, that's a great reason to be around.
I think that everybody, almost everybody, or 98% people over here are adult children, which is why we have a lot of fun together. Even though there are some extremely talented people here, there's no competition at all. Everybody supports the other people. And we all have a good time, actually. There's no judgment at all. And that's what makes it a great festival, this community that gets formed.
It's hard to dilute Surufest to a few activities, but for the purposes of this video, I have no choice. If you hadn't guessed by now, this festival was full of bouldering, and the location had something for all levels of climbers. We had 4s, all the way up to 8A+ in the Beul region alone. And that's only one of the 7 guided regions offered by Surufest. And I want to disclaim that I did not make up the names of these locations. Climbers just really like the original matrix and chose to stick to their naming patterns. Linked below is a PDF explaining some of the regions, rocks, and climbing routes at this year's festival. Here's some of my favorite. And I'm not talking about the routes. I'm talking about the names. There's Bird Shit, Not for Groupies, Random Cha-Cha, Trishul, Moong Dal and Aloo Bhujia, How High Is Your High, Shrooms, Magic Mushrooms, Laughing Buddha, Mutton Samosa, and so much more. Even if you don't boulder, just go through the guide. It's a brilliant piece of literature. Now there were some casual climbers like myself, and then there were more hardcore ones who were basically demigods pretending to be human. As is true for any sport, there's a lot more that goes into bouldering than you think. It's the perfect mix of strength, flexibility, balance, and focus. It's basically meditation for people who can't sit still. Sticking to the theme of mental and physical balance, the festival also offers the opportunity to walk on a very flat webbing between 2 anchors. Although we did more than just walk on it. Rosa even caught me moments before I fell on my ass. But if you're past that part, then you can do the same a few hundred meters above the ground. It's quite interesting to watch them set it up, because if they mess up, it's not going to be a fun time. Now, one of the coolest things about Cargill is its variation in terrain. What that means is that the conditions allow you to do some really cool things on a mountain bike. I don't know if I can explain that any more than I already did, so here's some footage. There's also the option to hop in a kayak and realize that cooperating with nature can be really fun. Now this year, there was a new addition to the activities. This is Kapil, and this is Ayaz. And now I casually boarded for a few years to get from place to place during my time at college. Yet I have never come across anyone as near as passionate about the sport as these people. Here's some of the things we did. Sudofest is about a lot more than just adventure sports. Yes, that's one element of it, but what makes Sudofest is the community. And there was no ordinary person there. To be at such a place implies that you don't fit in the ordinary mold. You rose above the primitivity of civilization and told the conformists to fuck off, naturally implying that everyone there was brilliant in some very original capacity. When weirdos find weirdos, they realize that the world isn't all that judgmental. There really are some people who rose above it and chose to live a life instead of shoving their noses in other people's business. Now, I know I may not look the part, but I was one of the youngest people there. And what I love is that none of us gave the slightest shit. No one was younger than anyone, and no one was older than anyone. Everyone was just there. There were participants aged 22 to 56, and everyone just managed to blend in. It was a surprisingly like-minded group of people. It was very reaffirming to see the way people think at such a congregation. Which is why I feel like it's worth saying this. The reason you fail to find civility in civilization is because people have a tendency to forget that we're merely upright apes pretending that we're not. And the cool thing about Sudofest is that these people are real ones.
ਮੇਰੇ ਵਰਗਾ ਕੋਈ ਦੂਜਾ ਖੜਾ ਕਰਨਾ ਵੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਐ ਨਾ ਸੌਖਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਵੇਖ ਲੋ ਵੇ ਥਾਂ ਮੇਰੀ ਕਦੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਰੋਕਿਆ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਦੇ ਤੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਸਾਵੇਂ ਨੰਬਰ 1 ਤੇ ਸੁੱਤੇ ਸੁੱਤੇ ਨੀਂਦ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੀਤ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਲਿਖਦੇ ਗੱਡੀ ਵੱਜੇ ਸੋਤੇ ਪਰ ਸਿਰ ਬਾਹਰ ਨਿਕਲੇ ਸ਼ੈਤਾਨ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਸਵੇਰੇ ਗੁਰਦਾਰੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਦਿਖਦੇ ਬੇੜਾ ਗਰਕ ਹੋ ਜੇ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਨਜ਼ਰਾਂ ਨਾ ਲਾਓ ਕਰੋ ਮਿਹਰਬਾਨੀ ਜ਼ਰਾ ਜਰਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਖਾਓ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਨਸ਼ੇ ਤੋਂ ਬਚਾਓ ਫਿਰ ਕਿਸੇ ਹੋਰ ਬਾਰੇ ਗੱਲਾਂ
Another element of what makes something like Sudofest so lively is its spontaneous nature. I mean, how much can you really plan when you're dealing with hundreds of people playing with nature in the middle of nowhere? I'm amazed the organizing team managed to pull off what they did. Now, I don't believe this to be possible, but if you ever find yourself bored at the festival, you can do one of several things outside of the charted activities. Here are some of them. You can juggle. You can do whatever this is. You can grab a frisbee, or this thing. You can balance rocks, interact with the villager kids. Oh, and pro tip, if you show up with a bag of chocolates, these kids are going to think the world of you. You could also do some unscheduled acro yoga, or unscheduled anything for that matter. You could do some regular yoga. You could walk in a surrounding you're probably not used to. You could pick up a guitar. You can prep for your workshops. You could go to one of the many shops and food stalls. And maybe even convince one of the stall owners to name a pizza after your friend. You could develop the clout to borrow a sponsored vehicle and drive up a few kilometers to the main market. Or, to be honest, you could just walk it. It's like an hour up. You can go for a swim, and maybe even get in a mud fight with some local kids. By the way, these kids do not fuck around. You can crucify Maurice. You can marvel at this wooden moth. You can strike a conversation with some unbelievably interesting people. Or if you're behind on your work and you feel like you're slacking, you can work from home. Or work from nature, I guess. Once it gets a little dark, then you have a few more options. You can night climb. You can sit at the campfire. You can play with fire. You can do some long exposures. Or maybe even be a bit more creative and do some light paintings. You don't even need a camera. Just grab some friends and a crash pad out to the fields and look up. And just as a bonus, we got to do some concept work with Decathlon. So I grabbed a bunch of people and told them to give me their best falls. The result is pure comedy gold. And just a quick warning, don't do what I did. I climbed this with my gear without a crash pad or climbing shoes. The thing about climbing shoes is that your toes are supposed to curl in them. Normally I wear size 12.5s, 13s, but in climbing shoes I wear 10.5s, meaning I feel like a character from a Dali painting. I worked at a shoe store for a year, so trust me when I say I do not like shoes that don't fit. But that's a bad excuse. Don't climb without the right equipment. Decathlon has you covered. And all of that leads me to one of the most important sections of the video. Yeah, I might have to take back that civility comment. Now, this incident took place a day after I had had my first shower. So I figured I'll wait to have the next one until I'm made aware which of the two showers was so shamelessly assaulted. But then soon after that, we were made aware that it had happened again. At this point, I had given up on taking a shower. I figured it's best to wait 2 weeks. But it doesn't matter how privileged you grew up. When you spend several weeks living out of a tent, your definition of privilege redefines itself. And one fateful morning, I realized that Slakistan had running water and a makeshift pipe, and my showers were therefore resumed. Now everyone was pretty chill except for this one guy who seemed a bit sketchy in this regard. Here's what he had to say when I confronted him.
Wasn't me, guys. It's all a made-up story, and I know now how rumors spread. In my defense, I had a shower, then I had a samosa. So the dots don't connect there. Please don't believe these guys, man. They're terrible.
Thank you so much for your time, brother.
There are countless reasons to go to Surufest next year, but the best reason is to become aware of an inside joke. If you know someone that's been to Surufest in recent years, just say to them, "Bushfire," and watch it light up the room. In conclusion, respecting the deity that I've been named after, all I want to say is this: in a world full of apes, be a monkey. Yeah, very quickly. Abhinav and I ended up in Leh about 10 days before the festival actually began, so I have way more footage than I know what to do with. So here's some of the things you can do if you arrive early for the festival. Let's get the most obvious one out of the way. The main Leh market is a wonderful place to spend your time. There's a vast variety of shops, eateries, and you might even manage to come across street performers trying to gather money to travel. If you're looking for a place to stay during your time in Leh, then one of our sponsors might be worth checking out. This is Rainbow Hostel, and they could not have given us a more hospitable 10 days. The staff was brilliant, the property was well maintained, the atmosphere was joyous, the community was stimulating, the owner was anything but uptight, and their dog was really cute. On our last day, a cow even gave the property a surprise visit, because the place is really that welcoming. We also found ourselves at the Ladakh MTB Festival. Because of our schedules, we could only show up at the closing. It was also in the middle of nowhere, so we walked several kilometers towards it until we managed to hitchhike our way to the base of the peak, and then walk to the top. We spent the day watching people race their bikes at the bottom at comically high speeds, and it was awesome. Like anyone that finds themselves in Leh, we went to the Leh Palace. We were there around Independence Day, so they had a massive flag up. It was pretty cool. We had to go through all these narrow passages to get there, and almost slipped from this place right here. We didn't do much. We just sat around and enjoyed the view. The next day, we rented a bike, made a friend, and went to Shea Palace. The drive there is sick. The view from the top cannot be done justice through video. Now I'm gonna be honest, once you reach there, walking to the top in itself is an adventure, because the path leading there is sort of under construction, and there's some partial climbing that takes place to get to where you want to go, but it's definitely worth it. Just don't slip, otherwise you're probably not gonna have a good time. If you keep driving onwards, you'll eventually run into the Thiksey Monastery, a place where you'll find unchallenged Buddhist aesthetics, a really cool view, and some esoteric deities that would take me hours to explain correctly. Naturally, we also went to Shanti Stupa, but if you haven't seen it in person, then you've seen countless videos on it already. Also, they didn't let me fly my drone. But we still got a cool view. I wish I could share more, but sucks to suck. Next, we made our way to Pangong. We just sat down our bags and made our way to the highest saltwater lake on the planet. We chilled there for a bit, and then Abhinav went back to the accommodation to get some rest. So I did what I always do when I travel. I wandered off. I walked by the shore for several hours, and by the time I got back, I had learned that Abhinav thought I got lost and arranged a casual search party for me with some random people because I didn't have network. Out of it, we met some pretty cool people. Anyway, after all of that was sorted out, we figured it makes no sense to rent a bike while we're there. So Abhinav arranged the next best thing. Now the thing about lakes is that they tend to be really windy. So my main camera wasn't stable enough to grab a good long exposure, so I just used my phone instead. We waited for nightfall, laid on the ground, and sat in the most relaxing silence for hours while looking up at one of the darkest night skies the country has to offer. And fun fact, during our time at Rebo, we met these two brilliant human beings, and we just accidentally ran into them several days later, 6 hours and 230 kilometers away from where we started. And these guys were looking for accommodation and ran into me just as I had stepped out of mine. During that time, they had their own little adventure. The Dalai Lama was in the region around the same time that we were, and here's them at the event. We ran into them again hundreds of kilometers away days later, but that's a story for another time. Once we got back, we went to the first edition of the Sa Ladakh Festival. Now Sa means soil in Ladakhi, which was rather fitting seeing that it was a land art festival. I was going to make a whole extended segment for the festival, but then I realized someone we met there made a video that covers it in more depth than I'd be willing to put in the effort for. It's linked in the description below. The German embassy also gave us the privilege of interacting with Kai Miluk. And if you know anything about climbing in Europe, you've probably come across this name. Then we went back for the closing ceremony, where way too much stuff happened for me to put it in a narrative. So I'm just going to share some footage instead.